China, ambitious space plans for the next 5 years. Should the U.S. be concerned? China's space programs.
The Americans are still by far the world leaders in the number of rockets that they launch, but China is catching up very, very quickly.
So I think we are in a space race with China. They are aggressive. They are good.
China's next 5 years in space may be even busier than the previous 5. On 28th of January 2022, the nation released a white paper outlining its plans and priorities for the next half-decade of spaceflight and exploration. China has achieved a great deal in the final frontier recently, from returning moon samples to Earth to assembly of near-complete space station due at the end of 2022, and the document makes clear that the country plans to build on these successes. China Space Station. China launched Tianhe, the core module of its new space station, in April 2021 and sent 3 astronaut missions to the orbiting lab shortly thereafter, one in June and the other in October. The country plans to finish building the station at the end of 2022 with its final launch of its second laboratory modules, known as Megqian. The first module, known as Wenqian, was launched and successfully docked with the Tianhe living area of the Tiangong Space Station on 25th July 2022. China Space Station Telescope, CSST. China's first large space telescope is expected to launch at the end of 2023 and start scientific operations 2024 at the China Space Station, according to the country's manned space program. The Chinese Survey Space Telescope, also known as a Chinese Space Station Telescope, CSST, or Huntian, or meaning Survey to Heavens, Space Telescope, is a space-based optical observatory for astronomers to carry out sky surveys, capturing a general map or images of the sky. It will orbit near China's space station, which means it will be relatively easy to maintain. It is an optical and ultraviolet space observatory that will boast a 2-meter lens, making it comparable to the venerable Hubble Space Telescope. Though the resolution of China's telescope will be similar to Hubble's, the CSST's field of view will be 350 times larger, according to Liu Jiafeng, Deputy Director of the National Astronomical Observatories of China. China aims to put boots on the moon. 10 years ago, China's lunar ambitions were a mere fantasy.
I would have laughed at this as an idea 3 or 5 years ago, but now we have to take everything that China says very seriously indeed.
However, in January 2019, China's robotic Chang'e 4 mission became the first ever to ace a soft landing on the moon's far side. In December 2020, Chang'e 5 brought pristine lunar samples back to the Earth, the first time that had been done since the 1970s. According to the white papers, the nation will launch the Chang'e 6 sample return mission to a lunar polar region, launch Chang'e 7 to perform a precise landing on the moon's polar regions, and a hopping detection of water ice, presumably in lunar shadowed area, and finish research and development on important technologies for Chang'e 8, which is designed to help lay the foundation for a lunar research outpost and developing cislunar space. Chang'e 6 and Chang'e 7 are both targeted for 2025, and Chang'e 7 will likely lift off first.
The first building blocks for the project, the mission that will land the first Chinese people on the moon, is already under construction. They've shown us pictures in the factory of the modules. So this is going to happen. They won't have a base on the moon by the end of this decade, but there is now a realistic possibility that a Chinese woman or a Chinese man could be the next person to set foot on the moon.
So, now we can already say that the confrontation in space will concern not only the satellites in Earth orbits, but also a base on our nearest celestial neighbor, and the orbital infrastructure necessary for its operation can also become a subject of competition. China Mars Orbiter. In February 2021, China's first fully homegrown interplanetary mission, Tianwen-1, slipped into orbit around Mars. In May of that year, a rover called Zhurong separated from the Tianwen-1 orbiter and landed successfully on the Red Planet. During its time exploring the Red Planet, Tianwen-1 showed to Mars we've come to both love and admire. dusty dunes, shield volcanoes, impact craters, and even the North Pole. While the orbiter was taking these amazing images, Zhurong was gathering data and information about Mars's geological structure, atmosphere, environment, and soil. Overall, the probe has collected 1,040 gigabytes of raw scientific data, which the CNSA said has been processed by scientists back on Earth and handed over to researchers for further study. Over the next 5 years, the nation will also complete key technological research on Mars sampling and return, exploration of the Jupiter system, and so forth, as well as study plans for boundary exploration of the solar system. Should the U.S. be concerned? NASA Administrator Bill Nelson issued a warning to U.S. lawmakers during a May 19, 2021 congressional hearing, holding up a photo from Mars snapped by China's Zhurong rover.
I want you to see this photograph. I hope that's coming through on the computer here. This is the Chinese rover that has now landed on Mars and has sent back this picture last night. Now, the Chinese Space Agency, the Chinese government is the only second nation to successfully land on Mars. They are getting ready and have already publicly announced that they want to send 3 big landers to the South Pole of the moon. And that's where the water is. And we are still a year or two away from a much smaller lander going there. What I'm saying is we're suddenly realizing that we don't own all of this. And it is a very aggressive competitor.
Nelson used his warnings on China's progress to make the case for increased funding for the U.S. Space Agency. NASA can't do it alone, he said. We want a vigorous competition, but we've got to have the money in order to be able to do that.
We're having this discussion today because President Biden and his administration released this budget request, and it came this morning. And NASA's $26 billion fiscal year budget for 23, it's a request from the president, from us, and it is a significant increase over last year's budget. In fact, it's 8% more than the enacted federal spending levels, the appropriation bill, from fiscal year 22. It's the largest request for science in NASA history.